you prepared to do this pledge? You're okay to? Here,
No, I said
here,
every
if
time
you
we
start
look
talking.
stand and wait.
Am I asking too much?
That's this one, right?
We're on?
We can do the whole thing.
Okay, good evening, ladies and
start it and
gentlemen. Thank you all for being here for this meeting of the Town Board of the Town of Carmel.
Envelope looks different.
Today's date is Wednesday, May 1st, 2019. Tonight's Town Board meeting is a Town Board voting meeting. We did meet in executive session at 6 p.m. to discuss several personnel matters. So we're now out here for the public portion of the meeting. Before we get started, as always, we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. So would everybody please rise? And Councilwoman McDonough, would you lead us tonight?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence to remember all the men and women who are fighting for our freedom. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. And today is, I want to mention this, Loyalty Day is observed annually on May 1st. In the United States, it's a National Loyalty Day. It's a special holiday meant for the affirmation of loyalty to the United States of America and for the recognition of the heritage of American freedom. Loyalty Day was made an official reoccurring holiday on July 18th, 1958, although it was first recognized on May 1st, 1955. Loyalty Day has been honored with an official proclamation every year by every president of the United States since its inception. Just a fact that everybody was aware of, but I wanted to mention that tonight so the public was aware of that as well. So, all right, so Town Board voting meeting. For the record, all Town Board members are present with us this evening, as is our Town Clerk, Ann Spofford, all the way down to my right. All the way down to my left, as always, is Greg Fulchetti, our Carmel Town Council. So, again, it's a Town Board voting meeting. The first item on the agenda is a public hearing on a proposed local law amending Chapter 156 of the Code of the Town of Carmel entitled Zoning. So, Ann, would you please read the notice of the public hearing?
Notice is hereby given that the Town Board of the Town of Carmel will conduct a public hearing at the Town Hall, 60 McAlpin Avenue, Mahopac, New York, 10541, on Wednesday, May 1st, 2019, at 7 o'clock p.m., or soon thereafter that evening as possible, on a proposed local law amending Chapter 156 of the Code of the Town of Carmel entitled Zoning, a local law regulating stormwater with respect to illicit discharge and elimination. Copies of the full text of said law are available in the lobby at Town Hall, from the Town Clerk's office during normal business hours, as well as posted on the Town of Carmel's website under legal notices at www.carmelny.org. At said public hearing, all interested persons shall be heard on the subject thereof. The Town Board will make every effort to assure that the public hearing is accessible to persons with disabilities. Anyone requiring special assistance and/or reasonable accommodations should contact the Town Clerk. By order of the Town Board of the Town of Carmel, Ann Spofford, Town Clerk.
Okay, at this time I need a motion by the Town Board to open the public hearing.
Second.
So moved by Councilwoman McDonough, seconded by Councilman Lupinacci. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the public hearing is open at this time. Is there anybody here that would like to come up and comment on this public hearing? Come on up to the podium this time. Okay, there being none, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Councilwoman McDonough, seconded by Councilman Lupinacci to close the public hearing. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, public hearing number 2 is on a proposed local law establishing a moratorium in regard to the issuance of permits for smoke shops and vape shops in the Town of Carmel.
Are we
And-
doing secret reviews?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You can do secret determination.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Before
Thank
you,
you for
move
catching
to
that. Yep, okay. My apologies, I'm moving a little bit too quick here. All right, so 1A on the agenda tonight, a resolution making a secret determination in regard to the proposed local law number
2.
2. Local law number 2 of the year 2019, enacting Chapter 156 of the Town Code of the Town of Carmel. Councilman Schneider, would you read 1A?
Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Carmel hereby determines that the local law number 2, amending Chapter 156 of the Town Code of the Town of Carmel, entitled Zoning, is a Type 2 action under seeker, NYCRR Section 617.5, C33, and no further review is necessary. I offer this resolution as read.
Second.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Councilman Lupinacci and Councilwoman McDonough. Roll call vote.
Councilman Borelli?
Yes.
Councilman Schneider?
Yes.
Councilman Lupinacci?
Yes.
Councilwoman McDonough?
Yes.
Supervisor Schmidt?
Yes. Motion carried. Okay, 1B is to consider the motion to enact the law. I need a motion
So
to...
moved.
As noticed and published.
As noticed and published.
Second.
Okay, so moved by Councilwoman McDonough, as noticed and published. Seconded by Councilman Lupinacci. Roll call vote.
Councilman Borelli?
Yes.
Councilman Schneider?
Yes.
Councilman Lupinacci?
Yes.
Councilwoman McDonough?
Yes.
Supervisor Schmidt?
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to go back to the agenda for the second public hearing this evening. As soon as I find my agenda. What'd you do with it, Sue?
Here, take this.
All right. Okay, public hearing number 2 on a proposed local law establishing a moratorium in regard to the issuance of permits for smoke shops and vape shops in the town of Carmel. Ann, would you read the notice of the public hearing, please?
Sure. Notice is hereby given that the Town Board of the Town of Carmel will conduct a public hearing at the Town Hall, 60 McAlpin Avenue, Mahopac, New York, 10541, on Wednesday, May 1st, 2019, at 7 o'clock p.m. or as soon thereafter that evening as possible, on a proposed local law amending Chapter 156 of the Code of the Town of Carmel entitled Zoning, a local law establishing a moratorium in regard to the issuance of permits for smoke shops and vape shops in the Town of Carmel as follows. Town of Carmel proposed local law. If adopted, it would be number 3 of the year 2019. A local law establishing a moratorium in regard to the issuance of permits for smoke shops and vape shops in the Town of Carmel.
Being enacted by the Town Board of the Town of Carmel, Putnam County, State of New York as follows. Section 1, purpose. Purpose of this local law is to establish a temporary moratorium on the issuance of building permits and/or certificates of occupancy by the Town of Carmel Building Department for the construction, establishment, and/or operation of any additional or new smoke shops or vape shops within the limits of the Town of Carmel. Section 2, legislative findings. Town Board of the Town of Carmel has received numerous complaints regarding the operation of smoke shops and vape shops as defined herein, specifically concerning their detrimental effect on the health, safety, welfare, and quality of life of the residents and citizens of the Town of Carmel. Town Board has decided to review the current zoning chapter of the Town Code and consider the potential regulation of such smoke shops and vape shops. In order to allow the Town Board time to complete its review, draft proposed new legislation, and enact any such legislation for these types of establishments, the Town Board deems it in the best interest of the general health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the Town of Carmel to impose a moratorium on the issuance of any further building permits and/or certificates of occupancy by the Town of Carmel Building Department for the construction, establishment, and/or operation of any additional or new smoke shops or vape shops within the limits of the Town of Carmel, which are not currently in existence or operation. Section 3, moratorium. Chapter 156 of the Town Code of the Town of Carmel is hereby amended by the addition of a new subparagraph, Section 156-39.6, which shall read as follows. D, notwithstanding the foregoing, no building permits and/or certificates of occupancy permitting the construction, establishment, and/or operation of any additional or new smoke shops or vape shops, which are not currently in existence or operation at the time of the enactment of this law, shall be issued by the Town of Carmel Building Department as a permitted retail use or other use within any zone within the Town of Carmel from the effective date of this local law until December 31st, 2019. For purpose of this section, smoke shop or vape shop shall mean any business facility or establishment with its main primary or specialized purpose being the on-premise use and/or retail sale of tobacco or tobacco-related products, smoking equipment and/or electronic cigarette products, and related products or paraphernalia. Section 4, home rule. Nothing in this local law is intended or shall be construed to A, limit the home rule authority of the town under state law to limit the town's discretion in setting fees and charges in connection with any applications requiring town approval. Section 5, severability. If any part or provision of this local law or the application thereof to any person or circumstance be adjudged invalid by any court or competent jurisdiction, such judgment shall be confined in its operation to the part or provision or application directly involved in the controversy in which judgment shall have been rendered and shall not affect or impair the validity or the remainder of this local law or the application thereof to other persons or circumstances. And the Town Board of the Town of Carmel hereby declares that it would be passed will have passed this local law or the remainder thereof had such invalid application or invalid provision been apparent. Section 6, effective date. This local law shall take effect immediately upon filing in the office of the Secretary of State in accordance with Section 27 of the Municipal Home Rule Law. At said public hearing, all interested parties shall be heard on the subject thereof. Town Board will make every effort to ensure that the public hearing is accessible to persons with disabilities. Anyone requiring special assistance and/or reasonable accommodations should contact the Town Clerk. By order of the Town Board of the Town of Carmel, Ann Spofford, Town Clerk. I offer this resolution as read.
Second?
Okay, seconded by Councilwoman McDonough.
Or I guess.
No, we...
Notice of
Oh,
public hearing.
Yeah, I need a motion to open the public hearing. Motion to open the public
We're
hearing?
jumping the gun on this one, huh, Greg?
Yeah.
So moved. Or-
So moved. Go.
So, okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the public hearing is open now on the proposed local law establishing a moratorium in regard to the issuance of permits for smoke shops and vape shops in the town of Carmel. Is there anybody here that wishes to comment on this particular public hearing matter? Come on up to the podium at this time. Okay, there being none, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Then
Second.
we can go enact these. Okay, so moved by Councilman Lupinacci, seconded by Councilwoman McDonough. All those favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, now, Suzie, 2A.
Yep.
On the agenda, would you read that? That's to consider a resolution making a secret determination?
Sure. Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Carmel hereby determines that the local law number 3, establishing a moratorium in regards to the issuance of permits for smoke shops and vape shops under Chapter 156 of the Town Code of the Town of Carmel is a Type 2 action under Seeker NYCRR Section 617.5C36, and no further review is necessary. I offer this resolution as read.
Second.
Okay, offered by Councilwoman McDonough, seconded by Councilman Lupinacci. Roll call vote?
Councilman Borelli?
Yes.
Councilman Schneider?
Yes.
Councilman Lupinacci?
Yes.
Councilwoman McDonough?
Yes.
Supervisor Schmidt?
Yes. Motion carried, thank you. So during this moratorium, the town board is going to be, am I jumping the gun again? No. All right. Oh, 2B, to consider a motion to enact. We just did that? 2B?
No.
Ann?
We did
No,
2A.
2A.
We need to do
Okay, so we
2A
need to
now.
do 2B now. I'll say, I need to consider a motion to enact the law,
As noticed and published.
as noticed and published. Who wants to make that motion?
I'll make that motion. So moved.
Okay, so Councilwoman McDonough made the motion,
Second.
Second. All right.
seconded by Councilman Schneider and Councilman Lupinacci. Roll call vote.
Councilman Borelli?
Yes.
Councilman Schneider?
Yes.
Councilman Lupinacci?
Yes.
Councilwoman McDonough?
Yes.
Supervisor Schmidt?
Yes, motion carried. So, while this moratorium is in effect, the town board is going to be reviewing the town code as it currently exists to determine whether or not any changes should be made to it with respect to vape shops, smoke shops, et cetera. So there might be some changes, or there probably will be some changes that the board is going to recommend making or consider making to this particular code moving forward, but that will be during the moratorium period. So Chapter 156 is going to be reviewed in its entirety, and if there's any changes that we feel deemed appropriate to that section of the code, then the board will consider making those changes. But before we make any changes, obviously a public hearing has to be held with respect to the language change or what the amendments that you may consider making to it. But we're going to be looking at reviewing it, and but that'll be down the road. I would anticipate probably within the next 2 or 3 months we'll be discussing that. All right. So that concludes the 2 public hearings for tonight's town board voting meeting. So we're going to move on to resolution number 1. And I'm going to ask Councilman Lupinacci to read that. It's a resolution authorizing rescheduling a public hearing on a proposed local law amending Chapter 111 of the Town Code of the Town of Carmel entitled Peddling and Soliciting. John, would you read number 1, please?
Resolved that the Town Board of Town of Carmel hereby authorizes the rescheduling of public hearing at Town Hall, 60 McAlpin Avenue, Mahopac, New York, on Wednesday, July 2nd, 2019, at 7 p.m., or as soon thereafter that evening as possible, on a proposed local law amending Chapter 111 of the Code of the Town of Carmel entitled Peddling and Soliciting, and be it further resolved that Town Clerk Ann Spofford is hereby authorized and instructed to publish and post the necessary notices in the official newspaper of the town and on the town bulletin board regarding this public hearing. I offer this resolution as read.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Councilman Borelli. Roll call vote?
Councilman Borelli?
Yes.
Councilman Schneider?
Yes.
Councilman Ligonacci?
Yes.
Councilwoman McDonough?
Yes.
Supervisor Schmidt?
Yes, motion carried, thank you. Okay, resolution number 2 is a resolution authorizing rescheduling a public hearing on a proposed local law amending Chapter 89 of the Town Code of the Town of Carmel entitled Freshwater Wetlands. And this is rescheduled to July 2nd, 2019. Councilman Borelli, would you read number 2, please?
Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Carmel hereby authorizes the rescheduling of a public hearing at Town Hall, 60 McAlpin Avenue, excuse me, Mahopac, New York, on Wednesday, July 2nd at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter that evening as possible, on a proposed local law amending Chapter 89 of the Code of the Town of Carmel entitled Freshwater Wetlands. And be it further resolved that the Town Clerk, Ann Spofford, is hereby authorized and instructed to publish and post the necessary notices in the official newspaper of the town and on the town bulletin board regarding this public hearing. I offer this resolution as read.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Lupinacci. Roll call vote?
Councilman Borelli?
Yes.
Councilman Schneider?
Yes.
Councilman Ligonacci?
Yes.
Councilwoman McDonough?
Yes.
Supervisor Schmidt?
Yes, motion carried. Okay, next resolution number 3 is a resolution accepting a proposal for engineering services at Airport Park Improvement Project. Councilman Schneider, would you read 3, please?
Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Carmel hereby accepts the proposal of Insight Engineering, Surveying, and Landscape Architecture, PC, of Carmel, New York, for services required in connection with the improvements to be constructed at Airport Park in accordance with the proposal of April 19, 2019, at a cost not to exceed $8,900, and be it further resolved that Town Supervisor Kenneth Schmidt is hereby authorized to sign any and all documentation necessary to accept the proposal and authorize the actions contained herein. Excuse me. Be it further resolved that Town Comptroller Marianne Maxwell is hereby authorized to make any and all necessary budget transfers or modifications required to fund the cost of this authorization. I offer this resolution as read.
Second?
Okay, seconded by Councilman Lupinacci. Roll call vote?
Councilman Borelli?
No, it's obvious where I think this water should come from.
Councilman Schneider?
Yes.
Councilman Lupinacci?
I agree with Mr. Borelli, but I will vote yes.
Councilwoman McDonough?
Yeah, I also agree, but I will vote yes.
And Supervisor Schmidt?
Yes, motion carried. Yes, 4 yeses and 1 no.
Correct.
Okay, next resolution, number 4, is a resolution making a secret determination, Carmel Water District Number 2, Distribution and Facilities Plan. Councilwoman McDonough, would you read 4?
Sure. Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Carmel, acting as Commissioners of Carmel Water District Number 2, hereby determines that the proposed construction improvements within the Carmel Water District Number 2 Distribution Systems Facilities Plan dated February 2019, as is on file with the Town Clerk of the Town of Carmel, as well as any and all grant applications to be submitted therewith, constitute a Type 2 action of the regulations of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, promulgated pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, pursuant to the provisions of 6 CRR NY 617.5, including but not limited to 6 CRR NY 617.5C2, and no further review is necessary. I offer this resolution as read.
Seconded?
Okay, seconded by Councilman Schneider. Roll call vote?
Councilman Borelli?
Yes.
Councilman Schneider?
Yes.
Councilman Lupinacci?
Yes.
Councilwoman McDonough?
Yes.
Supervisor Schmidt?
Yes, motion carried. Okay, next resolution, number
Kenny.
5, is a resolution adopting the
Ken,
amendment.
sorry, did you just want to explain what that resolution was, just for clarity after last week's meeting?
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is basically, so after last week's meeting, this distribution system is the pipe work that we're looking at in Water District 2 for the $13.3 million. This authorizes us to begin the process of the borrowing phase, as well as allows us to begin the process for grant applications. So that's why we did this
Right.
resolution.
Any action requires a secret determination regarding the action itself. You did authorize borrowing last week. That has a secret component that the board addressed during the course of the borrowing resolution votes. And with respect to the actual commencement of the project design phase, construction phase, and any grant funding, you have to make that determination. And it's basically, it's a replacement of existing or rehabilitation of existing structures or facilities in kind. That's what you're doing. So it's a type 2 under that section of 617.5C2.
Because it's in kind, right? If
In
that's-
place and in kind.
In place and in kind, that's what makes it
Right.
the type 2?
Correct. Even if you were doing
Right.
pipe replacement, it would
Yeah.
still count. The overall majority of this is proposed is relining, cementatious lining.
Okay.
So whatever component of that is falls under that category, and you don't have to do any further review. Okay?
Jonathan, thank you. Okay, next resolution, number 5, is a resolution adopting amended 2019 user fee schedule. Councilman Lupinacci, would you read 5, please?
Just a question before I read this. This is a user fee that was set up for the 2019 budget, correct?
Correct.
So there were no changes outside of, we're just adopting it now?
You adopted it. This is the first amendment with respect to the two fees that are changed within the schedule.
The two highlighted.
I apologize. I did not see what changed, so.
John, one right there,
Got it
in
right there.
yellow.
Peddling license.
Okay,
per month.
yep, thank you.
You
thank
adopt the user fee schedule every year, and during the course of the year, invariably gets amended point to point.
Resolved that the Town Board of Town of Carmel hereby adopts effective immediately the Town of Carmel user fee schedule for fiscal year 2019 as attached hereto and made a part hereof. I offer this resolution as read.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Councilman Borelli and Councilwoman McDonough. Roll call vote?
Councilman Borelli?
Yes.
Councilman Schneider?
Yes.
Councilman Lupinacci?
Yes.
Councilwoman McDonough?
Yes.
Supervisor Schmidt?
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, next resolution, number 6, is a resolution authorizing submission of a grant and funding applications for Carmel Water District's number 2 distribution systems improvement project. Councilman Borelli, would you read 6, please?
Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Carmel hereby authorizes and directs the submission of grant and/or funding applications to any and all state or federal agencies, including but not limited to New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation, relative to the proposed Carmel Water District 2 distribution system facilities improvements, and be it further resolved that said grant or funding applications shall be submitted by the Town of Carmel Engineering Department and/or engineering consultant J. Robert Fischetti and Associates, LLC. Be it further resolved that Town Supervisor Kevin Schmidt is hereby authorized to execute any and all necessary documentation required in connection with submission to any grant or funding applications authorized herein. I offer this resolution as read.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Councilwoman McDonough. Roll call vote?
Councilman Borelli?
Yes.
Councilman Schneider?
Yes.
Councilman Lupinacci?
Yes.
Councilwoman McDonough?
Yes.
Supervisor Schmidt?
Yes, motion carried. Okay, next resolution, number 7, is a resolution authorizing, subject to permissive referendum, construction of drainage improvements throughout and in the town of Carmel, Putnam County, New York, at a maximum estimated cost of $200,000, and authorizing the issuance of $200,000 in bonds of said town to pay the cost thereof. Councilman Schneider, would you read 7, please?
I offer this resolution for a $200,000 construction permit within the improvements of drainage for a cost not to exceed $200,000 bonds. It is a useful life of 40 years, subject to permissive referendum, and I am offering this as pre-filed with the town clerk.
Yeah, I'll
Second.
second that. I'll second that. This is part of our highway superintendent, Mike Simone. He comes to the town board annually for his drainage projects, his purchasing of equipment for the highway department, and also for his paving. So that's what these resolutions are for. So 7, 8, and 9 are related to highway superintendent Mike Simone's request for 2019 for capital improvement expenditures. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Borelli?
Yes.
Councilman Schneider?
Yes.
Councilman Lupinacci?
Yes.
Councilwoman McDonough?
Yes.
Supervisor Schmidt?
Yes, motion carried. Thank you.
Useful life.
Okay, next resolution, number 8, is a resolution authorizing, subject to permissive referendum, the purchase of maintenance vehicles for the highway department in and for the town of Carmel, Putnam County, New York, at a maximum estimated cost of $550,000, and authorizing the issuance of $550,000 in bonds of said town to pay for the cost thereof. So Some of the equipment that Highway Superintendent Simone is seeking this year will be covered by funds that were established by the town board that was set in reserve for the highway department. It was a reserve account, so we put money away over the past few years. So some of the cost of the vehicles coming out of our savings, where we had a fund established for the purchase of equipment for the highway department. And some of the vehicles, cost of the vehicles is going to be bonded as a capital project. I believe the highway superintendent is requesting to purchase two fully equipped snow plow vehicles, 4x4 snow plow trucks with plows, sanding bodies, salting, adjustment computers, distribution computers for distributing the material, and other equipment related to winter removal of snow and ice in the town of Carmel. So these vehicles are expensive, but we need them. It's part of our vehicle replacement that we've been doing over the years. So the highway department equipment has been maintained well. It continues to be maintained well, but we do have to replace vehicles as they age. So number 8 is related to equipment and vehicles.
No, section 1. The new school is 15 years, and then offers
Yep, the savings.
Perfect.
Correct.
this.
Want me to read it?
No, I think Susie's going to
Yep.
paraphrase some of it, right?
I am.
These are lengthy resolutions, so
Yeah,
what
I'm
we're
here.
doing is Councilman Schneider did paraphrase his somewhat, and Councilwoman McDonough is going to do the same.
Right.
We're
Advice of
going to
counsel.
try, yes,
All right,
okay.
so number 8,
So, this is a resolution authorizing, subject to permissive referendum, the purchase of maintenance vehicles for the highway department in and for the town of Carmel, Putnam County, New York, at a maximum estimated cost of $550,000, and authorizing the issuance of $550,000 bonds of said town to pay the cost thereof. The purchase of maintenance vehicles for the highway department in and for the town of Carmel, Putnam County, New York, each item of which is $30,000 or over, including incidental equipment and expenses in connection therewith, is hereby authorized at a maximum estimated cost of $550,000, subject to permissive referendum. It is hereby determined that the period of probable usefulness of the aforesaid class of objects or purposes is 15 years. And I offer as pre-filed with the town clerk. Yep, that's it.
Second.
off the resolution is pre-filed?
Yep, that's
Okay,
it.
seconded by Councilman Schneider. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Borelli? Yes. Councilman Schneider?
Yes.
Councilman Lubinacci?
Yes.
Councilwoman McDonough?
Yes.
Supervisor Schmidt?
Yes, motion carried. Okay, resolution number 9 is for repaving projects. So these are for capital projects involving the paving of town roads in the town of Carmel. Councilman Lupinacci, would you read number 9, please?
Yes. This is a resolution authorizing borrowing up to $1 million for road reconstruction and resurfacing throughout and in and for all of the town of Carmel, Putnam County, New York, including drainage, sidewalks, curbs, gutters, landscaping, grading, and improving right-of-ways. With a useful life of 15 years, subject to permissive referendum, I offer this resolution as pre-filed with Ann Spofford, Town Clerk, and as read.
Okay, seconded by Councilman Borelli. Roll call vote.
Councilman Borelli? Yes. Councilman Schneider?
Yes.
Councilman Lubinacci?
Yes.
Councilwoman McDonough?
Yes.
Supervisor Schmidt?
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, so that completes the voting meeting agenda items for tonight. It's a town board meeting. Is there any members of the public that would like to come up and comment on agenda items only that we covered tonight, 1 through 9? Come on up at this time if you'd like to comment on that. Okay, there being none, I'm going to open up the floor now to general public comment. This is the new business open forum portion of the meeting where you can discuss any town-related matters or business with the town of Carmel. You must be a resident, a property owner, or a business owner in the town of Carmel to discuss this. And Bob, can you do me a favor? Can you pull the podium back?
I got little issues. I put my neck and back.
I'll do it. It's just, it's a little tight. It's right up on top.
I don't even pull no muscles.
Usually not up this way. Okay, Bob. You are. Yeah, thank you.
No, it's not. So the press. Your father will get a copy. Good evening, Town Board. Tonight I'm here, I want to speak about Swan Cove. You want me to hold on, Mr. Supervisor?
Yeah, hold on one second, hey, Dave. If you could just step down.
Okay, I want to speak about Swan Cove. It was interesting over the last meeting, I think it was March 27th, very interesting meeting. I will not be addressing any comments that were made towards Robert Buckley or Bob Buckley. I'm not here for a personal war. I'm not here to dignify remarks that were not truthful. I will make comments referring to issues that have to do with Swan Cove and its approval, or lack thereof. After reading a news article written by the well-known Tax Watch columnist David McKay Wilson, I was very interested in the facts of the sale of Swan Cove. Last year, my interest was due diligence with Swan Cove. I submitted a letter to this town board. I asked this town board to do your due diligence. I never really got into the sale, the price, and how that all worked out. Although after I saw the article and Mr. Borelli's response, where he brought my name up 11 times, I felt compelled to come out and do a little research and figure out what's the real deal with the sale of Swan Cove. So here I am tonight. I want to ask a few questions about Swan Cove. I'd like Mr. Borelli to answer the first question, being he's the one who's heavily involved with Swan Cove. Mr. Borelli, when you sold Swan Cove to the Cottages, was it fully approved?
In my mind, it was.
In your mind? Is that it?
As an experienced developer, yes.
No, was it fully approved so they could build?
Hey, Mr. Buckley?
No, I'm asking you a question, sir.
And I'm going to answer it for you.
Okay.
Under advice of two retained counsels, I'm not to speak to you or Mr. Wilson, whether it's on this board or off this board,
So,
in the street or here.
that being the
You
case-
have to direct your comments to the supervisor, and if I could put them in writing, I'll answer them next week.
No, I'd like you to answer them, Mr.
I just said to you I won't.
I'm going to tell you why you won't answer them. I'm going to give you the reason why you won't
I'm
answer
quite
them.
sure you'll answer them for me.
I'm going to answer them for you. So the answer to the public is, we've been conned by Mr. Borelli. I'm going to prove it right now. When have you ever seen a council member refuse to answer questions from the general public about an action that he took to spend $1 million of our money? So what I just handed Mr. Borelli and the rest of the town board and the press here was a Swan Cove never have been approval document. In 2009 of January, Mr. Borelli and his partners, and I will not name his partners because this isn't about his partners, it's about him. They were seeking approval for Swan Cove.
That's a very interesting statement, but go ahead.
I thought you wasn't talking to me. Are you gonna, you can't just pick and choose. If you're gonna talk to me,
I want to point that for the record.
okay.
Oh,
I
wait,
like
Bob, I just want to interrupt. David, it's not, please don't take pictures of people in the audience. You shouldn't be behind Annie anyways. So if you can step forward, but what I'm gonna ask, if you want to videotape, Bob, please feel right ahead.
Does the guy get
But-
my permission?
But out of, yes, he should have
you
your
can do it if you
permission,
want.
yeah. But out of respect for people in the audience, just please, you can videotape us, without a doubt. You can videotape Bob, but just please, you don't, please don't.
This is ridiculous. I'm trying to
I
make a
know.
presentation
You're
here,
right. So
and you
video-
guys are interfering.
No.
This is absurd.
No.
I mean, I have an issue here. We
The-
spent $1 million of the
I know,
taxpayers'
Bob,
dollars. I have a legitimate issue here.
I
One second,
know.
a councilman refuses to answer questions, and now, with all due respect, you're like just throwing the floor. I need to.
No, Bob,
All
I
right, well,
want
you're
you
gonna
to
give
be
me the
able.
time to ask my questions.
Yes, I
Very
am, but
good.
listen.
Go ahead.
what I-
Handle your business then.
Thank you. What I wanted to do, Dave, again, please, you can videotape us, you can videotape the speaker as long as he has permission, but I'm asking you to be respectful of people in the audience. That's all. So, Bob, please, continue.
Okay, thank you. So on November 28th of 2012,
There you go again. There you go again.
wow, what a circus. I'll wait here all night. This is a circus.
Keep down your throat right now.
Call the police.
Did you hear me? Put that in your paper. Are you a father of a young lady? Do you have any daughters? You have serious issues. And your partner, Mr. Buckley, knows exactly what you're doing tonight. come, my daughter don't come? Because you and Mr. Buckley know the game you're playing. And
David.
as far as I'm concerned,
Mr. Supervisor, he should not be talking about me as a taxpayer in this town. You're allowing, you need to handle that. He has no business talking about Mr. Buckley. I've been very professional and quiet up here. I'm going to be a gentleman. You cannot allow this councilman who refuses to answer my question
I understand that, but
to make those statements.
This is a public town board meeting, all right? We cannot have this meeting disrupted, all right?
I am not disrupting
at all. It's being disrupted about what Mr. Wilson is doing to a resident of the town of Carmel who's sitting here. He was asked multiple times by that resident to stop tape recording and videoing her, but he continues to do that. That's where the meeting is being disrupted.
So here's the problem with this.
So
And
continue.
Mr. Wilson, here's the problem with this. And this is the same problem on the 27th to the press over here, to Bob Dumas, and I don't know your name, but I know Mr. Proctor. This is a diversionary tactic. So, Mr. Dumas, you're going to talk about the harassment of the what's going on here, or this scene, or you're going to talk about the real issue, how we were duped as taxpayers. Let me finish. November 28, 2012, Borelli acquires planning board approval contingent upon obtaining permits from the New York State Department of Transportation for water and sewer and approvals from the Putnam County Health Department. March of 2016, Borelli and his partner sell Swan Cove to Mr. Kojar for $725,000. Mr. Borelli just said to me he believed it was fully approved. Now, he always said it was fully approved, probably 10 times over the last 2 years, but fully approved just turned to, I believed it was fully approved. But, okay, so that's his new term. On October 3rd, Mrs. Gina Kotaj sends an email to the planning board secretary. Now, that's October 3rd, 2017. I will read it. I foiled everything from the Board of Health, the Planning Board, the ECB, DOT. I did everything I had to do. So, as everyone, this is what Ms. Kotaj says, as everyone at the Town of Carmel Planning and Building Department is aware, we have been delayed due to Department of Transportation, Water, and Sewer. As of today, Swan Cove Manor has DOT permits for sewer. However, we are awaiting water permits. Therefore, she said she does not have approval. That's after she purchased the property a year and a half later for Mr. Borelli. On October 11th, the planning board grants Kotaj a one-year extension. On October 19th, Mrs. Kotaj appears before the town planning board, the ECB board. They grant an 18-month extension. In your papers here, you will see the planning board extension, the zoning board extension, all approved and done, indicating that Swan Cove was never approved at this point. Now, 13 days later, at this podium right here, Mr. Civilian Mike Borelli gets up here and he makes his passionate speech to everybody up here. Let me just quote a couple of the things that he said. This man, referring to Kotaj, is willing to speak to you. He wants to sell it, referring to Swan Cove property. He has all the approvals now. Now, Mr. Borelli said that 13 days after Mrs. Kotaj went to the planning board, and a couple days earlier to the zoning board. So Mr. Borelli, when he sold you that dream about he has all his approvals, was an outright lie. The next thing he said, the man is willing to speak with you. He wants to sell it, referring to Swan Cove. He has all the approvals. That could be found on the town board video on 1 minute 11 at .18 on that date. Then he says, this man has to be spoken to. He has to be spoken to tomorrow. This is all on November 1st. I'm going to just try to do it the way Mr. Borelli did it, although I'm not that good of an actor. He has to be spoken to tomorrow or the next day, or you're going to blow it. Then he takes his fingers. He goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and he gets emphatic. 5, and he gets emphatic. He says, you 5 people are going to blow it big time. He puts on a show. He pressures you. Then he says, this is a no-brainer. You either have a park there or you have 10 fully approved condominiums or rentals. Now, before I go on any further, I think it's quite obvious they don't have the approvals. They don't have the Board of Health approvals. I have all the paperwork, I have all the documentation. They don't have the DOT approvals. I'd like to ask the town board here, starting this on this side, if you don't mind, unless your attorneys told me you couldn't speak to me. When you voted for that contract, sir, did you believe that there were approvals on this property on Swan Cove, Mr. Snyder?
It is advised.
Well, you already said for the record, you and John already said for the record that you believed they were fully approved. So that's on the record. So, Susie, did you believe it was approved?
Yeah, I believe we were advised by council not to say anything
Right.
regarding this whole,
Great, you gotta be kidding me. This is a public, you
Situation.
can't tell them not to answer questions about public comments about stuff they voted on. This is ridiculous.
Bob, their job is not to answer questions. They can choose to if they want. They've consulted with me, and my advice to them is as they've stated, and I'm not at liberty to discuss any of the details of that advice, either
All
my
right, so
communications. to
then
them
I will
or
tell you
theirs
what I
that-
know. I will tell you what I know, okay? I will tell you what I know. The press, I got it all documented. I will tell you what I know. They got no Board of Health approvals. Mr. Borelli submitted an application to the Board of Health with his partners, and he got back a letter from the Board of Health. In that letter, the Board of Health letter, he says it's all a rubber stamp. The planning board gives you approval, you get a rubber stamp, you bring it back, it's over. Well, if it's such a rubber stamp, there's 24 questions from the Board of Health. Very intricate, detailed questions about the project. Mr. Borelli or his partners never responded to that letter to Mr. Borelli. Therefore, he don't have Board of Health approval because it died right there. Board of Health didn't happen. DOT, the reason he can't get the water, he says, oh, we're in the district. We can get water anytime we want. Half true, but mostly false. You have to drill under 6N. You have to go in front of, all the way over to the Spain side. I actually spoke to excavators. They estimate that to be $200,000 plus because you have to do boring, and the DOT demands that you do it that way. So the DOT is not interested in allowing you to drill all the way across 6N, over to the front of the Spain building, and put a water line and run it back. That's not going to happen. The DOT did give one permit. They gave a permit to cut on this side of the road by 6N for access for sewer if they were ever to get approval, from the Board of Health. So being that you don't have permission from the Board of Health, you don't have a fully approved project. Being that you don't have a DOT approval, you don't have a fully approved project. And being that the town board is not going to speak to me, I'm going to assume that Mr. Kotage was also told that this was a fully approved project because Mr. Borelli thought it was fully approved. People in town, they've been calling me, just like they call Mr. Borelli and text me and call me and grab me in the store. They say, Mr. Buckley, you know what really happened. I said, what really happened? Tell me what really happened. They said he sold the lemon to Kotage. Kotage thought he could build 10 units of condos. When Kotage found out it wasn't fully approved, Mr. Borelli had to figure out, how do I make this right? Well, on November 1st, when he became before this board, and he passionately told this town board how important it was for you to buy it. And not only was it important, he demanded that you meet immediately. Mr. Snyder and Mr. Smith, you said, we'll meet with him tomorrow. Not only did you say you'll meet with him, you said, Mike, I want you to be in the negotiations. You invited a civilian into the negotiations who doesn't own the property anymore. And Mike said, I think Mr. Kotage would want me there. So now you got our town representatives in the room, Mike Borelli in the room, Kotage in the room. Kotage, who knows what really happened there? Guys, this smells real bad. This smells real bad. So we paid $275,000 more than Mr. Kotage paid for it. And then Mike goes through this list of why we had to give him all this money. When at the end of the day, we also didn't get an appraisal. And let me tell you about the appraisal. In the late 2000s, by the way, And Mike's a real estate type guy, so he understands it. I got the final site approval, says, this is why when he says, I could put a commode in the middle of Swan Cove, you can come sit in it. Now, I actually pictured him sitting in the middle of Swan Cove when he said it, sitting in the middle of Swan Cove, right? I could flush it, and it would work. He's not lying. It would work for the old shacks that were there, but they had to change the sewer line to a 6-inch main, which meant you had to, in fact, I have drawings from his engineer who submitted the plans to the Board of Health saying we're gonna run new lines there. It was mandatory. We got Jack Carell, you got Gaynor, and then you got your current engineer, and those two said we need Board of Health approval, gotta run a new line, and let me find. This is from Rich Franzetti, October 3rd, 2017. So now it ain't just Ms. Kotage, and he sent this letter to the Carmel Planning Board. This file, referring to Swan Cove, this file does not contain documentation that the application had filed and executed a permit with the DOT to connect the project to the water system. It has received a New York State DOT permit to connect to the sewer. Don't be misled that connect to the sewer. The DOT only means that this is our road, you can cut a piece out, but you still have to go to the Board of Health for approval. This is very disturbing. I was pretty much done with this, but when I came back from my little vacation, and I had all these emails, and I told my name was brought up 11 times, I said, all right, I guess I got to see what's going on here. So, and Mike said, I wish Mr. Buckley were here. I have a few questions for him. That's why I'm here. I'd love to answer your questions. You did ask me to come. You got to ask me a few questions?
Your imagination and your ignorance.
Are you telling me you didn't say that?
Your imagination.
It'll be on YouTube tomorrow.
Will
Did
let
you
me
not
finish
invite
my
me here?
statement?
And
Your
don't call me names.
imagination.
All right, one at a time.
Go ahead.
Your
please.
imagination and your ignorance and your lackey here with the camera that has no respect for women are unconscionable. I would never dignify a person like you with a response.
That was my line. Thank you. For a guy who's, like you said, you only got a high school education, you're doing
Because
pretty
any
good.
developer worth his salt knows exactly what happened. And you are just a rabble-rouser?
Let me tell you what happened.
A troublemaker?
You conned the people in this town, Mike. You conned them.
Oh, I conned everybody.
You sold it to Kotage for $725. He thought he hit a lotto. He thought he could put condos and make a score.
Mr. Kotage wanted to come here to address that last article. I told him not to. You know what I'm going to tell him now? To come.
Let me know. I'd like to meet him here. Of
Because
course he's
you're
going to cover you.
insulting- you're
You and him walked
insulting
away
the
with
intelligence
$275,000.
Frank
He's go-
Kotage.
he walked away with $275,000.
He had, his attorney was Valentin DeJean.
Yeah, I know, you said that. You said how great he was.
Okay.
Here's what you said about Valentin Kotage. God, I'm
Mr.
glad you brought his
Buckley,
name
I love
up.
seeing you every week for the entertainment value
Let
alone.
me tell you what you said about his attorney. You just walked into that one. Yeah, maybe you should have listened to your attorney. Let me tell you what you said about, you walked right into that one.
Okay.
You said he's got the greatest attorney out there, and he would never allow Mr. Kotage to buy a property for $750,000 without its approvals. That's exactly what you said. It's on the tape. So that's what you said. Thanks for bringing it up. So listen, I'm going to leave it at this. You're all mute. I'm very disappointed that you're mute. Nobody, and listen, I want to say this to the press. I'm not arguing with Mike. I'm not reducing myself down to name calling. He's called me ignorant. I'm not even responding. I got too much respect for myself, the people out there in TV land. I'm going to be respectful to everybody. I'll never call him a name. I won't call nobody here in this town board name.
You just did.
What'd I call you?
You said I lied to the entire
Well,
town.
you did. That's a fact. That's not a name. That's a fact.
Mr. Buckley, you should go home and take a nap.
Mike, you lied. You conned the people.
Guys.
And I just want to know, listen, I'll
It's
tell you
way
what,
past your
I got
bedtime.
one last question.
But
Mike, I got one last question. If you're so sure that this was 100% above board, you called for a state controller's investigation, Attorney General investigation.
Attorney General.
On 2 of your town board members for,
Not on two, not on two. Not on two, sir.
How many?
Again, you don't know
How
what you're
many?
saying. Okay?
many?
And.
I'm asking you to call for
and
the Swan
she's
Cove
investigating
investigation.
Swan Cove too,
No,
everything.
I'm asking you to publicly make a motion for a Swan Cove investigation to clear the air on this. If you do that,
No
you'll give yourself...
problem.
So
Absolutely.
are you going to make a motion for this town board to
No.
call for the New York State Controller?
Oh, I think we should have an investigation on everything. I think we should
No,
have
no,
an
no. Are
investigation
you
on
going to
you.
call for an
But I'm
investigation?
talking too much.
Are you going to call for an investigation on Swan Cove?
Go ahead, Kenny, call for an
All right.
investigation. Make
Thank
it
you
happen.
very much. You guys have a nice day.
You do it. I have no problem, I'll second it.
And I'll document everything.
All right.
Go ahead, make a motion,
What-
I'll
what-
second it.
First of all,
and we'll all vote
what
on
are
it.
we investigating?
The man's insane.
Everything that Bob just said?
Yeah, I mean, really.
Oh, okay, listen, all right, it's a shame that this meeting turned into what it turned into.
Okay.
It's really unfortunate. I understand, I respect you coming up, Bob, as a resident, but this is probably one of the worst, experiences that I've had.
It was worse than the 27th when he called my name 11 times. It was worse than that while I was away and you didn't stop. I won't say nothing. That was worse when you sat for that 1 hour.
Did I say it was you?
But I'm just saying.
Bob, don't take it personally.
All right, because I've been
I
a
didn't
gentleman
say
here.
it was Bob
I'm
Wilson.
only stating facts.
Okay.
Everything I'm talking about is
saying
in
I don't
red.
like the tone that this meeting took. I
You-
don't like the direction.
well,
it took.
I hope you're not
There
saying you
were a
don't
lot
like
of
my tone.
There were a lot of allegations made tonight.
No, there were a lot of
against each
facts
other.
stated, which were backed up by
They're
records.
allegations, they're allegations.
If I say that somebody doesn't,
Unless they're substantiated by
One
factual
second.
data.
here's the factual data.
All right.
I said the cottages did not have approval. I gave you a letter, an email, where she asked for an extension on October 3rd. Maybe you should look at what I gave you.
Well, no, I think we should depose the cottages. That's what I think we should do. And the
Listen,
only way we're going to
if
depose
they're
them.
in bed with Mike and a deal
I'm
was
not in
made.
bed with Mike,
No, I
Bob.
didn't say you.
I'm not in
You
bed
didn't
with
listen to
Mike.
what I said, Kenny.
Go ahead.
If they're in bed with Mike, when they're going to come up, they're going to play happy, happy.
If they're in bed with Mike?
Yeah, if him and Mike made a
listen,
deal, that's not going to work.
Listen, Mr. Cottage.
I don't know, so
the
I'm
man.
not accusing
He
Ms. Scott.
seems to
I'm
be-
accusing Mike
Bob,
of
Bob,
selling the
can
residents
I-
a dream.
okay.
I'm leaving with this.
All right.
Good night. I'm done. I'm going to enjoy the summer. I think it was important that it be said. The residents know the truth. The residents do know the truth. All right? We've been conned. You guys refused to speak about it. The four of yous know when you voted on it now that you voted for something that was fully approved. The mistake you made was, I'm going to say this to you, and I like some of you, is when Mike Borelli told you, and you, it was approved, you believed him. When Mike Borelli told the tax assessor it was fully approved, the property got assessed as if it was a fully approved project, because I actually went up and spoke to the assessor. The problem is, Mike said something quite interesting on the 27th. Mike said the Facebook groups are interested. He said, if the people say something enough, people start believing it. That's a fact. And Mike Borelli said that Swan Cove was fully approved so many times. I hate to say this to this town board, you guys believed him without checking on him. You could have went to the planning board, the zoning board, you could have called the secretary, you could have called the engineer department, you could have called Mike Carnazzo and said, Mike, did you ever give a building permit? But that didn't
Bob,
happen. I thought you weren't talking
You
to
want
me.
me to respond to that, Bob? Because now I can't.
No, only if you respond to
Do
everything.
you
Oh,
really
no,
think
don't just pick and
nobody on
choose.
this board asked anybody in this building? Do you really?
Let them speak for themselves.
That statement is
You
so
have to let them
insane
speak
in
for
itself
themselves. You have
It's
to
so
let,
insane
you
in
cannot speak
itself
for them.
that they should be coming and taking you in a rubber
Mike,
room.
you cannot speak for them, okay? I know Mr. Lupinacci and Mr. Snyder said for the record,
Well, Mr. Lupinacci and Mr. Snyder have said a lot of things.
they did, and they said for the record they believed you. They put their faith in you as a developer
Absolutely.
and a councilman, and they made a mistake. You lied to them, you lied to the residents, and everybody here. And my tone was nice. Was
I don't
a
think I heard
gentleman.
them say they made a mistake,
Oh,
that they don't
maybe.
believe it.
They made a mistake in believing you when you lied to them. That's the
Well,
mistake
so
they
much
made.
for an early meeting.
Have a nice day,
Bob,
all
let
right?
me ask you something.
Yes, sir.
Would you, as the town supervisor, would you like me to request an inquiry through the Attorney General's office and the State Comptroller's office?
Yes, I think it would be
Are you
appropriate.
requesting that I do that?
I think that's appropriate. And then if nothing comes out, then Mike can stand up and say, I'm
I
clean.
will absolutely.
You'll
do
send
that.
a letter, and
I will send a
you'll
letter.
CC me a copy.
I will send a letter.
that.
Okay,
I will
good.
send a letter
And
to, and I'll request an inquiry.
Into?
Into the purchase of the Swan Cove property by the town of Carmel.
and Borelli, Cylinder, Cottage, the chain all the way
Well,
along.
they'll look at all of that. They will look at all of that.
That's great. Do that,
Okay.
and I'll follow up with the Attorney General's office and Controller's office, and we'll see what happens in 8 months to a year. And then we'll get some answers.
All right, why don't we do that?
Why don't we do that?
All right.
That would be
Does
great.
the rest of the town board agree with that?
I second it.
I-
No question about it.
There's already been an inquiry. So there's a big difference. An inquiry. Thank you. So an inquiry is similar to what Councilman Borelli put forth to 3 council members, to the Attorney General and the Comptroller. Comptroller comes down in their regular audit. They say, okay, have a question for you. We received a complaint, and they go over this, and we say, okay. So we answer the concerns that Councilman Borelli addressed. Have more questions for you. We received a complaint about Swan Cove. This is their inquiry. We have another question for you. Received a complaint about Airport Fields. That is their entire process. If it were an investigation, it would be a completely different unit and a completely different representative.
So you calling for an
inquiry is
investigation,
totally
Mr.
different.
Supervisor? Not an inquiry, you calling for an investigation.
State Comptroller is investigating the
You're gonna call-
entire town.
There is
So,
no
to the
investigation.
press here, if you don't
The
mind.
comptroller, the representative from the comptroller
Did I make
has
that clear for
agreed
you,
and has
Mr.
specifically
Buckley?
stated, there is no
Can I make this
investigation.
clear for you,
A
Mr.
completely
Mike,
different
can you tone it down?
department
I'm
from the
not
state
raising my
comptroller's
voice to you.
office
I'm
would be
Mr.
here
John.
if
I
there
have
was an
not raised my
investigation.
voice to you.
There is
When Mr.
absolutely
Schneider
no
finishes, I'm
investigation
gonna say
into
something.
anything. If there was
I
any
didn't-
reason for the
John,
word
I didn't-
investigation
you got
to be
to back
used,
up 'cause he
a
cut you off.
completely different department from the state comptroller would be down here. The woman who was down here has nothing to do with investigations, and if there was any intent that there would be an investigation, she would have immediately called a different department. She is not handled. She's not
So
authorized to
she's
handle
doing like an
it.
audit type thing.
She is looking into inquiries, and part of her audit is saying, I have to ask you questions about these concerns that I've received from the public. Very standard procedure across the board.
Standard.
An investigation is something completely different unit. There is no one at the state comptroller or attorney that is doing any
They're
investigation
doing an
at
inquiry.
all.
So, Mr. Supervisor,
Guys, let me say
are
this.
you going to
If-
call for an investigation?
If this Attorney General's inquiry, that who's here now, the individual from the Controller's office, if it should ripen, if her inquiry, as part of her, looking through documents in the town of Carmel, if it should ripen into an investigation, she will pass that on to another branch of the state
Listen,
Controller's office.
let me
So-
just say this to you, Ken. I've been in law enforcement like you for 30 years, okay? I know a con game when I see it. I dealt with it my whole life. I'm going to leave it at that, okay? You know it, I know it. Are you calling for an investigation, not an inquiry?
They are investigating.
Yes.
So to the press.
Yes.
To the press, Mr.
I
Supervisor's
have no-
calling for
I have no-
What he's looking for a
investigation.
headline is what he wants you to do.
Yeah, I have no problem with that,
Okay.
at all. All right.
Okay.
The
Very
state
good.
comptroller is here investigating.
I'm not
the
worried about- I'm not
entire
here to talk about
town.
the state controller.
I'm telling this to the
Completely
public,
inaccurate.
not for
That's an
you.
old story.
Completely
That's an
inaccurate.
old story.
I'm not telling it for you.
That's an old story.
The
That's-
state comptroller is here investigating the entire town.
Absolutely not. That is 100% the
And-
wrong word,
and
very
he will
specifically asked the
say that
individual as a
over and over,
representative.
and he said other
she
things
said, no,
too.
investigation is a totally different unit. This
So
is
let-
an inquiry through an
let-
audit.
let's- can
An
I just be-
investigation
can-
is a totally different
Can I
unit.
just say something to the town board and the press here? Diversionary tactics by Mr. Borelli will try to redirect your story away from the fact of what I said tonight. He can't just throw what he wants in there week after week after week, and you guys report it, all right? The supervisor here said he's going to call for an investigation, the Controller's office and the Attorney General's office, and
change that? Can I call for the investigation?
Can you?
I'm calling for the investigation.
I want the supervisor, the highest ranking guy in the town to do it. Thank you.
I'll call for an investigation.
Okay, thank you
I'll
very
do
much.
it.
You guys have a good night.
Okay, is there anyone else here for new business, open forum portion of the meeting? Come on up at this time. Okay, if not, I have some announcements that I've been asked to make. The town board requested a presentation by the town assessor's office at a public work session on May 8th, 2019. This will focus on maintaining assessments at 100% in the town of Carmel. It will include discussion on the following: time of sale of inventory, New York State sales, usability criteria, determining market trends from sales, indicated trends, what trends were applied to market neighborhoods. This information will be presented by Dave Barnett of Gar Associates, Appraisal Associates, Stephen Hartnett of the New York State Office of Real Property Services, and Glenn Drosy, the town assessor. So this is just an announcement for the residents of the town of Carmel who just received their annual 100% assessment notices in the mail. The assessor's going to be available here next week, May 8th, at 7 p.m. to discuss the rationale behind the assessment adjustments in the town of Carmel. And if you're interested in getting some education with respect to how assessments are set annually by the assessor's office, I'd encourage you to attend that meeting next week on May 8th. The notices, yeah, I
got mine
received mine.
today.
All right, I think everybody would have gotten their new notices
I
by
haven't been
now.
home yet today, so I
So
gotta
it's
sit.
probably in your mailbox.
Yeah, you should see them in the mail this week. There's information in regards to what you could do to get further information in regards to what your appraised value is. What you received has nothing to do with what your tax is. It has to do with your appraised value, what your home value is worth. Most questions are answered on that letter, but if you are available to come out next Wednesday, it would be a very good opportunity to have it would be a very good opportunity to have direct time for a question and answer with the professionals who do assessment in our town, as well as the consultants, as well as the professionals at the state level. So it's May 8th, 7
May 8th,
PM?
yeah, May
Right
8th,
here.
7 p.m. It's going to be the first item on the agenda. So then the public, as John said, will have an opportunity to ask some questions with respect to their new assessments, their annual assessments. And everybody should have gotten, as Susie said, your notices by now. And any changes to your assessed value of your property.
Oh, and individual properties will not be discussed at that meeting. It's broad questions, it's generalized questions about the process, the calculations, but on a sidebar, individual properties could be discussed, but it won't be at the town board work session next week.
It'll be the sidebar with the assessor and the other professionals that are here. Okay, from GAR. Okay, another announcement, notice of vacancies. The town board of the town of Carmel is looking for interested and qualified persons to fill 2 vacancies on the planning board of the town of Carmel. Please submit a letter of interest and resume to Supervisor Ken Schmidt, Carmel Town Hall, 60 McAlpin Avenue, Mahopac, New York. You can fax it to 845-628-6836 or email it to amp2@ci.carmel.ny.us. And these, requesting that these be submitted to my office by May 17th, 2019, so you have a few weeks, 2.5 weeks to decide if you want to submit a resume in the letter. For additional information, please check our website, www.carmel.ny.New York. So if you're interested in serving on the Town of Carmel Planning Board, now is your opportunity, as we have 2 vacancies. One is currently vacant, and the other one will be vacant as of June 30th, I believe, as of June 30th of this year. So if you want to serve on your planning board in your community and get involved in your community, no better way than serve on an administrative board in the town of Carmel. So send your resumes and letters into my office if you're interested. Board members have any announcements they'd like to make at this time? Jonathan, Susie? Okay. All right, so we do not have executive session. We're going to be closing the meeting from here, so I need a motion to close.
So moved.
And we'll be back here next week for a town board work session. Good night, everyone. Be well.